So Charles, this is a rather unusual moment for an instrumentalist because even though we've worked since the beginning of the 1980s together, we don't really or haven't had the opportunity to talk to one another in this kind of manner. So I'm very interested to ask you a whole load of questions. But I didn't realise that you actually started off as an oboist.
Well, I even started off actually as a flautist.
That's right, yes.
But
you saw the light.
My first non-keyboard instrument was actually the flute. But then I read that there was a great shortage of oboists, bassoonists and horn players, right, and that there were scholarships going at the Sydney Conservatorium to study those three wind instruments. Right. And so I thought, well, it would be nice to play the oboe. So I switched from the flute to the oboe, but my chance really came when I joined the Sadler's Wells Opera as second oboe and cor anglais on tour. Yeah. But also I was doing repetitoring, yes, teaching the singers their roles, and doing a bit of off-stage conducting. In those days, they didn't have television monitors and things to help to keep you together with the off-stage choruses. But there was an intermediate conductor, that was me, who looked through a hole in the scenery and looked at the main conductor in the pit and followed him. It was during that time that I got to know this gentleman. I had just bought a score of the Dvorak D minor symphony in a shop in Kensington, and I was studying this while drinking a cup of coffee in a cafe, and this man opposite me said, "Oh, I see you are studying the music of my country." So we got into conversation, and I tried to tell him of my ambitions to become a conductor and all that, and he said, well, you should go to Prague and study with Václav Tálych. And he said, as a matter of fact, I've just come from a meeting for 6 British students to go to Prague to study and 6 Czech students to come to England. The reaction against the Nazi occupation was the Russians and the communists, and my wife and I were in Prague as the communists took over. We couldn't really stay with the communists there, so we went, and I went back to Sadler's Wells, and that's where I started my conducting.
I think I'm right in saying that you actually started your relationship with the Philharmonia Orchestra in 1955. So can you tell us a little bit about your first experience with the orchestra?
I got to know Walter Legg, who was, of course, the famous founder of the orchestra, and he took a certain interest in me. At that time, the people who were conducting the Philharmonia Orchestra all the time, particularly in recordings, were Giulini and Klemperer, both of whom suffered a lot of ill health. Right. And so they were always planning, Legg was always planning to do recordings with them, and suddenly they were ill, and very short notice, and he was always getting me to come in and take the sessions, which is how it happened that so many of there's so much light music which I recorded with the Philharmonia in the old days, which came from that fact that Klemperer and Giulini were constantly backing out, suddenly cancelling at very short notice, and I used to go in and conduct not the same repertoire as they were supposed to do, like the Verdi Requiem or Beethoven symphonies or something, but always light music.
And what are your plans for the future with the Philharmonia?
I've got concerts in October, which are built around the 2 of the Dvorak symphonies. One of that being that historic Dvorak 7th Symphony, which changed my life and made me into a Czech specialist.